Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about navigating the twists and turns of life and embracing the imperfections of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches Catherine and Kirsty, and our mission is to support you in finding your own path, your own way, with greater clarity and self trust, no matter how messy or uncertain things may seem.
We address the roadblocks that come up time and time again for our coaching clients, from acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
As well as asking lots of questions, a coach's favourite thing to do, we'll be sharing thoughts and insights and offering plenty of tips, tools, and techniques for you to try.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. Hello and welcome to another episode of Mission Imperfect. And this week we are talking all about resetting, but without starting over. So Catherine, tell us a bit more about the reset.
Yes, it's a word I like, but I think it has, as most words do, they have some connotations, don't they? Things like delete and start again or wipe out
Yes.
previous settings, like literally hitting the reset button. But I think it doesn't have to mean that, and we also don't have to wait for something to be wrong either to actually
Hmm.
want of something of a reset. It can be a bit more gentle, more of a little pivot rather than right, that's it, throwing everything away, starting again like a big dramatic reinvention. And I think it's just helpful to think that it can be a whole spectrum of different things to probably still count as some kind of reset. And it really reminded me of when we spoke about pausing before. If you remember,
Yeah.
we spoke about,
Hmm.
pausing can be just literally a couple of moments. You take a breath before you perhaps rant at somebody, and it might turn into something else instead. Um, and it's the other thing it has in common. It's about sort of noticing before we decide on action, and that's the other thing I
Yes.
like about it. So you might notice that something's drifted, something's sort of dulled or become ignored, and it's a reason for you to want to think, hang on a minute, let's
Yeah.
let's have a reset moment and just check in with what's going on and what I'm going to do next. So very much connected to pause, I'd say.
It is rather, isn't it? It feels a bit bigger than pause. I just 'cause I really
Mm.
like the use of drifted and dulled. Notice when something is drifted or dulled. That's a really nice way of putting it. And there's a puzzle game I play on my phone which offers me a reset option. And when I've just gone round in circles so much without solving it, I can reset the pieces to the start. And well, that kind of a metaphor because it's when I start again, I've still got what I learned from before. I'm just sort of reminding myself of where I started from as I tried to get to where I want to go.
Yeah,
And it's sort of a chance to move forward again, but with the knowledge you've acquired from what you've done before.
yeah, exactly. The other thing about a reset is, so obviously we're going to share about what one might look like, and how you might want to do it. But there's just probably another thing that's really quite important here. And we've probably said this numerous times throughout many other episodes, but any time is a good
Mm.
time. It could be the middle of the year, it could be after a wobble, after a big event, or when something just feels a bit off. It's not this sort of designated territory for New Year, as we've spoken about with
Definitely not.
resolutions. Like that, I mean, that's got that time window bagged. But they do often fail for good reason, because that's about setting some kind of action, perhaps without the reset bit first. So I'm a big fan of actually a bit of a January reset. I like a September reset, a spring one, a summer one. Any time is a good time to do it. I think what's more important than the calendar date is actually maybe some signals of what's going on. So it could
Oh,
be things like, and these things aren't necessarily things that are going to ring massive alarm bells, but now we say them, you might think, oh, hang on a moment. So it could be things like you're feeling really busy, but not fulfilled. So your time is occupied, but actually, when you take a moment to think about it, is it really what you want to be doing,
mm.
or is your time being spent in a way that feels valuable to you? It could be low level irritation or flatness of mood. It could be a bit more of second guessing yourself, perhaps more than usual, losing some trust in your own decisions, or thinking, oh, I really should feel, we don't like should, do we? But it pops up. whether we
It
like it or
works
not.
here, I think.
Yeah, it's things like I should be grateful, but you still sort of feel a bit unsettled, even if you can't pinpoint it. And
Yeah.
these are realizations that don't mean failure. It's just information that's helpful as a perhaps a precursor to that reset.
Yes, it's just noticing these things is like the body barometer, isn't it? When things don't feel right, that's a signal to consider what's making them not feel right and what might make them feel better. And here you go. Here's your reset opportunity, not option. Words aren't happening today.
That's all right. I'm sure mine are going to go out the window as well if they haven't already. But yeah,
I need to
you
reset my vocabulary, clearly.
just wipe that out, start again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're very much imperfect, so people hopefully still with us. What we'll say about resets is instead of jumping straight into the goals, habits, or plans, I mean, those are really very valid things. But for me, they come kind of after a bit of pre work first, because sustainable change starts, I think, with understanding current reality,
Yeah.
even if that's a bit uncomfortable. So we're not anti goals, but goals without context, they can become pressure, they can become unobtainable, and that's often why they end up cast by the wayside.
Yeah. They can become
So,
big old shoulds, can't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, it can the idea of a reset doesn't have to look like that complete change. I mean, it can look like reconsidering where you're going, but it might look like rethinking how you're going to get there or what you need for the journey or when you'd like to arrive. So that there's lots of different things that can come out of a reset that are going to help you settle those niggles that you've been experiencing.
yeah, absolutely. And I think the way I like to start a reset, got to start somewhere, is that reflection on current reality, and that it's just a noticing, not judging or trying to brush stuff away that you don't really want to think about or admit to, or any of that kind of stuff. It's just let's be honest here. So it can be a means of recognizing and even understanding patterns. It's not an opportunity to criticize yourself, but it is an opportunity to not hide things from yourself as well,
Mm-hmm.
because an exercise in honesty is always going to be a better place to start. So here's a few example questions that might help start such a reflection. So it could be something like, what's been taking up my energy the last few months? You can choose whatever time period you feel is relevant, and that can count for any time of year. So it could be you're doing this in September, reflecting back over the summer, and there might be context that is relevant to that period, so like children in the
Yeah.
summer holidays, for example, to
And, and
explain things.
and maybe the period you instinctively choose is telling you something
Yeah,
about what's going
absolutely.
on and what the problem is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you might delve a bit deeper and ask questions like, what's felt heavy, what's felt boosting, what have you perhaps learned about yourself over the last few months, even if it's been the hard way. um, and maybe being really honest, has something been stopping you from focusing what you really want to be focusing on, or do you not even know what that is, but it's not quite what it has been? There's all sorts of little feeder questions that come off, I think, central questions. It's a bit like your thoughts, isn't it? You
Yeah.
start with one thought, before you know it, you've gone down a whole road of other thoughts. But they were just a few ideas of where to start. You don't have to ask them all. There's no right or wrong. You can come back to any of them. No one needs to know what your responses were. It's just curiosity, like prizing open the thinking door, I call it, because otherwise the door
I
remains
like
shut
that.
in your
Yeah.
face and you're really acknowledging what's behind there.
It's prizing it open, but it's still keeping it private because you don't have to justify any of this. You don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't have to tell the rest of the world. It's just being honest in your own mind and accepting the feelings and what comes out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest, context, of course, matters. We are all
Always.
different. So a reset for each of us is likely to look and feel different, as much as there'll be different things in it. So there isn't a set formula that works for everyone. And that's true of most things in life. But there's, generally speaking, we've all got some life components, if you like, for want of a better word, that sort of shape and inform our reality. So these will be things like our values, our beliefs, our skills, strengths, and interests, and our
Mm.
weaknesses.
Oh, yeah.
our energy and preferences, our well-being, and our circumstances. Basically, what stage of life you're at and who is in your life, and basically what's sort of happening around you. So that's probably not exhaustive, and I don't want to overwhelm people by suggesting you need to work on all of those things at once
That's a
either.
relief. Thank you. Yeah.
Because yes, we don't want to do an exercise in overwhelm,
No.
because chances are you're probably going to be drawn to one or two of those, and they might be impacting others in any
Mm,
event because they're all kind of connected together. And each of those elements kind of asks a different kind of question. So for example, if we took beliefs, one of those early ones, sometimes it's not what we're doing, but the story we're telling ourselves about what we're doing or believe is possible. That's going to be the relevant part of that.
yeah. So often those stories that we don't even notice until we start to ask the questions and dig a bit
Exactly.
deeper. They reveal
Yeah,
so much, don't they?
because they've become ingrained, and that's the problem. When
Yeah.
something's ingrained, it becomes automatic. You don't really question it anymore, and it's just happening. You've kind of accepted it as much as you do things like going out the front door. And sometimes you don't consciously think how to get to the end of your driveway, do you? But you've done it. It's it
Eh,
Your thinking can follow the same
yeah.
kind of suit, can't it? It becomes very automatic. And yet, with our beliefs, they're things that we hold to be true that aren't
Mm,
necessarily true. So that's one. Um, the energy and preferences. It could be that you're doing a lot of the right things, put that in quotation marks, but at the wrong times or in the wrong way for you. So it might not be the thing that's the problem. It could be the when and the way in which you're doing it could
yeah.
be adjusted that works more in your favor. I've realized I have prime part of the day. I think I've said this before. I think it's about 10 o'clock in the morning is my prime part of the day. So really that's when I aim to do some of my, I call it like the bigger lifting work. Like if I
Yeah.
try and do that at 9 o'clock at night, forget it. It's just,
Not
I'd have
happening.
two radically different outputs. I can guarantee
Yeah.
it.
Whereas other people thrive at night time, isn't it? And there's
Yeah.
a brilliant Walkman Y sketch where he says, I am playing all the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order.
Yes. I
And
love
I think
that.
that's true of often what we it can often be true of what we're doing, that there's a lot of good stuff in our lives, doing the right things with exercise or nutrition or whatever, but not necessarily at the right time for us or quite the right way. And you can play around with that. Have a reset.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I appreciate some of the things I mentioned in that list. So just going to repeat again: the values, beliefs, skills, strengths, interests, and weaknesses, energy and preferences, well-being, circumstances. Some of those are big, meaty areas. I totally get that. But they each are going to be giving you little snippets of information that is your
Yeah.
a reflection of your current reality. So maybe consider following one of those elements that has your attention, the one that made you sort of go, oh yeah, that one
Mm,
stands out to me. Maybe it's the one you've been avoiding, or it just feels pertinent right now. And that might be the one where your reset wants to begin. There isn't like a magic formula, must follow 6 steps. That's what counts as a reset. It doesn't
no.
matter like that. We've got a blog resource. We'll share that in the show notes, and it has some further questions on many of those 6 topics that I just mentioned. And we've also done an episode just on values, for example. That's another big, meaty
We have,
topic.
yeah.
So we'll also link that one. And if you'd like us to do a dedicated episode on one of those elements or something else, then obviously do get in touch and let us know, because we
Yeah.
are we are all ears, as well as
That,
all
that would be
mixed
fun, wouldn't it?
vocabulary as well.
Yeah, challenge us to do an episode on a particular topic. Mm.
Yeah. Unless it's something totally random, but we'll give it a go.
Oh, I'm up for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a bit of random.
Exactly, exactly. And we do have other specialist subjects, don't we, Kirsty? Like, biscuits. So we do. Had to get it
Absolutely.
in this episode, had to get it in there somewhere. Anyway, going back on track,
Well done.
just say if there's going to be one golden rule of a reset, it's the best kind starts with this honesty, but with self compassion. It's not about beating yourself up. And we're not guaranteed an easy ride, are we? And we're all just
No.
navigating it as best as we can. So it's better to sort of with your eyes open, I'd say, rather than shut and just blindly sail through it, hoping for the best.
Oh, if the road's particularly bad, maybe shut your eyes. But no, yeah, doing it with your eyes open is well, if you're driving, doing it with your eyes open is definitely to be recommended. And we don't really want to be passengers in the car of our own lives, do we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So
do we have a question
we
to
do,
finish
we
with
do.
today?
So just considering those areas that we've mentioned, is there a part that feels like a little more honesty is required, or maybe it just needs a bit more attention? And then maybe what could be a first step to work on rather than a total overhaul? Just a thought.
Mm.
And again, it's very much connected in a way to what we spoke about in our Wheel of Life episode. All of these things interconnect. That
Yeah.
could be a valuable exercise if you're feeling like I'm not quite sure how to get this reset going. You
Mm.
could start with that exercise as well. That's our aim with these episodes. Is always to try and give you little ideas of tips, techniques, things that you can try. And of
Yeah.
course, if you want to get in touch with either of us to discuss them further, we are very happy to hear from you.
Yep. Coaching is all about prompting you to dig a bit deeper, helping you ask and answer the questions that are going to help you move forward in the ways that feel right for you. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. And hopefully you'll join us for next week's Mission Imperfect.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect. We'd love to hear your thoughts on any of our episodes, especially if you've had a light bulb moment in answering one of the questions, have benefited from one of the tips, or have a suggestion for an episode topic.
And if these conversations have made you curious about how coaching could help you, please don't hesitate to get in touch with one or both of us to find out more about what we offer. Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.